Hello everyone, welcome back to another live stream here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus Brady and Luke Peyton. In this video, we are going to be giving a full recap of the 5 club provincial finals which took place over the weekend in Gaelic football and indeed in hurling. Luke, first of all, how did you enjoy the weekend? 5 provincial finals of varying degrees of drama and excitement. How did you find them?
Yeah, look, it's a great time at the moment, I suppose, as well. That once you get to this kind of phase of the season as well, so like it's just top teams all over the place as well. And the amount of games that we had at the weekend, you had in the World Cup as well. It's just this great time for sports fans, I think, everywhere at the moment.
Yeah, no, the World Cup as well. Just casually on in the background there. I know the madness about why it was a Winter World Cup this year, but that's obviously a conversation for another day. We're going to start, Luke, with the hurling. We're going to start with probably one of the best games we've seen now for a while in the Club Hurling Championship. Ballyhale Shamrocks against Kilmacud Crokes. Ballyhale Shamrocks 222, Kilmacud Crokes 219. Now, I think it's fair to say going into this game, we would have said Ballyhale clear favourites. And especially in that early stage in the second half when Ballyhale were 14 points in front, you would have expected them to cruise home. I did not see a comeback like that coming from Kilmacud Crokes.
No, absolutely not. And I'll be honest, is that when at halftime you're looking at an 11-point lead for Ballyhale, and I think I'd kind of said it the week before that I thought that something like that could have happened, where I said I thought that Ballyhale were going to win by 10 points. So at halftime it was looking that way, and then it was a pretty remarkable effort, I suppose, by Crokes, and to get that back to 1 point as well. And look, we'll talk about the goal that dropped in anyway as well. That was an absolute sickener after all the work to get back as well. And I think the keeper will probably be unhappy enough with that one now. Probably be disappointed that one went in. But look, it was just remarkable that to go from, like you were saying, 14 points as well, to get that back down to 1 point in pretty much no time at all, really. So a fantastic effort by Crokes, but look, ultimately just came up just about short on the day, I suppose. And look, for them to be able to mix it with the Ballyhale side now, they know that they're capable of being on the same field as them and giving them a proper game as well. And look, that Crokes team, we'll talk about it in a minute, is a very, very young side. So look, I think they'll take plenty positives out as well. Ballyhale have a bit more know-how though still. And look, that's the thing, is that even with the comeback and everything as well, you still felt that the TJs, the Owen Codys, the Colin Fenleys were still going to chip in with scores, and they just have that kind of know-how to get over the line as well. And look, they finished, despite all the momentum being with Crokes, they finished the last 10 minutes probably looked the better side as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned about Crokes' comeback. Let's not forget, though, they gave themselves an absolute mountain to climb. Like at the start of the game, it was even enough in the first few minutes. On the 8th minute, Alex Considine hit a point to make it 3 points to 2 for Crokes. But then from the 8th minute to the 28th minute, Kilmacud Crokes did not score, and Ballyhale hit a goal in 9. Colin Fenley getting that goal in the 24th minute. Like that run of just letting another team dominate you. It's very rare you're going to win a game if you let a team get the run on you like that. Never mind the Ballyhale Shamrocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it was too much of a task as well, just in the second half to come back into that as well. Look, with the caliber of players you're coming up against as well. Look, you're exactly right that something has to be done there to stop the momentum as well. But look, they'll learn from that as well. Like you're saying, some of these fellas that are that you see are that have made the breakthrough for Crokes in recent years, very, very young fellas as well, that are kind of very early 20s. And look, that'll be a learning curve for them too. And look, I guarantee it won't be happening again for them as well. You look at that team, I think they could start dominating Dublin championships a little bit the next while. And like people talk about, I suppose, that recent years we had kind of the Coolas coming through Dublin as well, like facing off against the top sides in Leinster. And I think that Ballyhale and Kilmacud could be a bit of a rivalry now for the next couple of years. I'd say they could be facing off against each other at the latter stage. It's a good bit now.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a very, very good shout that could do that. Talk to me about the goals. Obviously, Kilmacud Crokes fighting back. The first one came obviously 35th minute from the captain, Caelan Conway. Alex Considine's goal in the 47th minute. That made it a 1 point game, 119 to 215. That really turbocharged Kilmacud Crokes' fight back.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Considine's one of these players I think that Dublin kind of need, where he's just kind of, he's a constant eye for goal. And I think it's nearly every game that I've watched with him playing, he seems to always end up with a goal as well. And that's exactly what Dublin need. Their full forward line. Their full forward line last year was kind of a little bit light, not getting the scores from it as well. You're relying on scores deeper at the field from Sutcliffe and Burke as well. So a fellow like him as well, he's so direct. And look, and I suppose I think he's kind of does an awful lot of what people are hoping Ronan Hayes would kind of do for Dublin a little bit, but he's no, look, he's just such a threat. But look, the big moment I do think in the game is that it's the long puck from midfield as well. This drops in past the goalkeeper as well. I think that's the real sickener, I suppose, for Crokes, and I think that was the influential moment in the game, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, no doubt. That was a sucker punch because they fought back, as you mentioned, from 14 points down to 1 point. They have all the momentum on their side. And then Ballyhale get, let's be real, a bit of a fluke goal to put them right back into the driving seat. And when you had all the momentum, when another team takes it all like that, it feels like they almost double the momentum that you got. Crokes fought back. TJ Reid, we have to mention, clutching up in the last quarter with 2 huge points as Ballyhale got over the line in the end. And you talked about the Kilmacud lads mixing it with the Ballyhale lads. Obviously, the amount of players that are leaving the Dublin camp or rumoured to be leaving the Dublin camp. Obviously, you've got the likes of Chris Crummy. He's gone. He's a massive blow. Who else from this Croke side, along with the likes of Hayes and Whiteley, would you like to see get a run out in this Dublin team?
Yeah, well, look, so I think if you kind of talk about the young players straight away, I think Dara Purcell's done the jumps off the page straight away. That he's hit 5 points from play today, and he's just had a fantastic kind of club championship throughout the whole thing. He's so young as well still, and that, look, I think he might even be an under 20 again this year and stuff as well. So that's the thing. He's very, very young, lots of potential. Can play either corner forward or he can play in midfield as well. So like, he's got that kind of versatility as well. I think he could be starting in the full forward line next year as well, maybe coming out as the extra man around midfield sometimes too, in a Cathal Mannion kind of role. So I think he looks very, very good prospect. Brian Sheehy as well in the full back line is a good player. Davy Crowe, I think, has a great chance of making it as well. That he can another player that can play in anywhere in the back line or in midfield as well. Keane O'Cahasig, Mark Grogan. And then, look, I suppose the interesting one is Oisin O'Rourke as well. I think that he's been arguably probably the best player in the Dublin Club Championship, and that I wouldn't be shocked to see him going back and get a run as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of logical, isn't it, that the best player in the club championship should get a run out for that county side. But just ask Sean Curry. I mean, you can hit 10 points in the club final and you still don't even get a look in the side. So Dublin choices don't always make sense, but I definitely would love to see these Kilmacud lads get a run out on this Dublin side, because we do need fresh blood in there and we need a bit of belief about us in 2023. Now, the other side that made it into the All-Ireland semi-final, and conveniently, they are Ballyhale Shamrocks' opponent. It's Ballygunner, the All-Ireland club champions, defending club champions, and they defended their Munster title, beating Ballyea by 123 to 17 points. Interestingly, they are the first Waterford side to retain the Munster senior hurling title since St. Joseph's Dura Bearfield in 1999. It's only their 4th Munster title. I mean, for a club like Ballygunner that we always associate with having pure dominance, they haven't really, it's their 4th Munster title. 2 of them now have been back-to-back. So Ballygunner really are, this era that we're in right now is a real golden era for Ballygunner.
Yeah, definitely. And look, you talk about it, them only seeming like they would have had way more than that. I think it just kind of sums up how difficult I suppose the Munster Club Championship's been in recent years as well. And that there's been some great sides like that in the Piercing side that have come through in there as well. That it's just so difficult to get Munster Championship wins, and that the fact that a team like Ballygunner, which are probably, like, they're up there as one of the strongest club sides I've seen anyway as well. The fact that they've only got out of Munster 4 times as well just sums up how difficult the challenge is for them as well. But I think you're right in saying that this could be their peak team, I think, as well, and that you look at that they have the older players they're still enough to be in their prime. That they're like Pádraig Mahony and Philip Mahony as well are kind of getting on a bit, and Stephen O'Keefe is getting on a bit as well. But they're still at a stage where they're still playing to the maximum of their ability, and you're combining that with the young fellas coming through as well as. And look, we'll get on and talk about Patrick Fitzgerald now in a minute, but it's just they seem to have more strength and depth as well, I think, this year than what they previously have too. And I think that just that mixture of youth and the experience in there as well, that this probably is the best version of Ballygunner that we've seen.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic cocktail. I mean, the mix between the experience and now the likes of Patrick Fitzgerald breaking into the side. Last year they trounced Ballyea by 17 points. That was in the Munster semi-final. This year they beat them by 9 points. Ballyea, to be fair, had Tony Kelly this time. He hit 11 points for Ballyea. 8 of them came in the first half. So again, an outstanding performance by Tony Kelly. Ballygunner, though, Luke, powered home in the final quarter in particular, outscoring Ballyea by 8 points to 2. I mean, that does show just the level of experience that they had, the level of professionalism that they drive home in the key moments.
Yeah, definitely. And look, it's just that was the thing in the first half, that I thought Ballyea's work rate was absolutely excellent, and that they really, really kind of came out of the block strong and stuff, and that they really pushed them as well, I thought, and that they really didn't take a backward step whatsoever. Tony Kelly hit absolutely everything, didn't miss a thing in the first half, and just everything he took on seemed to be going over the bar as well. And even despite all that, everything going so well, Ballygunner still going 3 points up as well. They weathered the storm completely, and then look, I suppose their better fitness showed, their stronger panel showed as well. And look, I think as well, when you look at the caliber of the 6 Ballygunner forwards, that all 6 of them had scored in the first half, and look, by the end, you're not going to slow them down at all and stuff as well. You take away one of them as well, and then even the likes of even the non-county players like Kevin Mahoney is capable of stepping up and delivering a huge performance as well, and hitting a rake of scores too. So, like, it's just they have so much weapons all over the pitch, really, and they've a settled team as well, that you know who's going to be playing, you know who's playing where, and look, they just seem to have everything kind of going right at the moment, and look, they thoroughly deserved it as well. We're definitely the better team of the day as well. And look, I think we're probably going to talk about Fitzgerald now as well, but like, he's an absolute joy to watch, and that just for a fella of that age as well, and to have a full forward line at club level with himself and Desi Hutchinson and then Kevin Mahoney in it as well, like it's absolutely unstoppable. And look, the fact that you've Pádraig Mahony feeding ball into them as well and stuff, and Peter Hogan buzzing around there too, and Mikey Mahoney, like, it's just unbelievable talent really for a club side.
Oh no, they're incredibly strong. I mean, it would be comparable, like, if you like, to a Crokes defence, or it'd be comparable to like an East Kerry attack almost, or a Ballyhale Shamrocks team, or Ballyhale Shamrocks attack, of full forward line of Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen and TJ Reid. Like, it's a similar enough attack that Ballygunner have with the likes of Desi Hutchinson, Pádraig Mahony, and now Patrick Fitzgerald, who I genuinely think has the potential to be one of the best hurlers in the country over the next 5-10 years. I think he's absolutely brilliant. His goal in the 20th minute, that came at a key time, because Tony Kelly had just put Ballyea into the lead by 7 points to 6. And that was the first time that Ballyea had led the game throughout the entire game. That was on the 19th minute. A minute later, Patrick Fitzgerald smacks the back of the net, and they went in at halftime 111 to 11 points up, and they never looked back.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it was a big, strong, powerful run by Pádraig Mahony right through the centre of the defence, and then lays it off. And look, Patrick Fitzgerald, he didn't even need to look up as well. Just ball into the hand first time, and from a good distance out, right to 21-yard line, back to the net. Like, and that was, look, it was an absolute clinical between the run, the finish, everything as well. It was peak Ballygunner there as well. And that, look, it came at a huge time as well. The momentum that Ballyea were getting from those Tony Kelly scores as well, all kind of cut out a little bit there too. So yeah, look, big moment in the game as well. And I suppose, look, and Pádraig Mahony as well, that's the other interesting one, that he looks completely rejuvenated. I think a lot of, like, after last season with Waterford a bit, when he played a couple of games, and then people were saying that maybe he wasn't at the same level as he was a couple of years ago again. But look, he seems to be well rested now, and he's kind of found his form again a little bit with Ballygunner. So I'd be curious to see kind of how Davey sees him going forward as well.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that he does look back to the player that we knew him as a few years ago. I mean, he's never really dropped off the pace like that for Ballygunner, but if Waterford can get that version of him back in, he'll be crucial. Now, what we would have always said from the start of the club championship were the two best sides in the country in Ballygunner and Ballyhale Shamrocks. They are going to play each other in the All-Ireland Club semi-final. Just a crazy matchup this. I mean, you think about last year's game, got Ballyhale were 10 seconds away from being over the line in club champions, and then obviously Harry Ruddle smacks that ball into the back of the net past Dean Mason. Which one are you backing this year? Because obviously Ballygunner now have the baggage off their shoulders. They're a side that loads of people would have thought should have won the club All-Ireland years ago. And could it be a case with Ballygunner that would almost be like the Dublin footballers, that once they get that first win, that they're off to the races then, and the talent that they have coming through, they've got the donkey off their back, if you like, of winning an All-Ireland, and now they can just go out there and enjoy themselves, whereas Ballyhale Shamrock's been there, done that, the amount of experience they have, just the matchup is incredible again.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And look, it'll take a brave person to call it as well. But the other thing is that, like, Patrick Fitzgerald wasn't even allowed play last year for Ballygunner. That apparently in the training sessions he was arguably the best player in it sometimes as well, and he still couldn't play because he hadn't turned 18 yet. So you're adding in essentially what's going to be an intercounty player into that Ballygunner side as well, that were already a club All-Ireland winners last year, and now they're going to add in a player that, look, I'd be shocked if he's not playing for Waterford next year. So I do think that that's going to be a huge boost from as well. Their attack has become more potent as well. The fact that, look, that Billy O'Keefe's not even starting, it's gone from being an club all-star last year to getting about 10-15 minutes at the end of games as well now. Like, it's just shows that I do think that Ballygunner have improved even since then as well. Ballyhale will have that motivation of wanting to get back on top as well, where, look, to be honest, that they probably, the reality is there's no way they should have lost that game last year. That, look, Harry Ruddle should have probably been pulled down a few times, but I think they will have that motivation to get back on top as well. But I just think, I don't know, I think the Ballygunner seem to be in a pretty good place at the moment as well. And even, look, it's going to be an all-time match as well. It's going to be an absolute classic, and I'd probably lean Ballygunner at the moment, I think, as well. I just think that adding in Fitzgerald and as well, those factors as well, that they've won one as well. They just seem to have that kind of swagger about them this year, and they have this confidence as well. That Ballyea game as well, that even when Ballyea are putting it up to them as well, they never really looked too worried about it at all, really. So I just think that they just have this thing about them, and they just seem to be moving really, really well at the moment. And I do think this is the best version of Ballygunner we've seen. Whereas, look, with Ballyhale, I think we've seen Ballyhale in better shape in previous years, I think. So I'd be slightly going towards Ballygunner, but I wouldn't be very confident about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's in my mind, it's flip a coin. I wouldn't be surprised if either of these sides came out on top. It definitely will not be more than 2 points, 3 points. I mean, both these sides were neck and neck last year, and they will be. I would put a lot down on that this year. If you're a betting man, bet by no more than 1.2 point victors either way. And I wouldn't be surprised if either of these sides came out on top, because they are that evenly matched. Another team that is going to be in the All-Ireland Club semi-finals is Dunloy. They beat Slough-Neil by 212 to 16 points. Luke, this is a huge victory for Antrim Hurling. I mean, it's a first Ulster title in 13 years for Dunloy. They did it without Paul Shields and Conor McKinley. I mean, against the Slough-Neil side that everybody was talking up again as going to retain their Ulster title, especially that they were knocked out of the football. Now the likes of Brendan Rodgers and Shane McGuigan and the McCaigs could just focus solely on the hurling. But they've been taken out now by the Antrim men. 2 first-half goals that set them on their way, and they never looked back.
Yeah, look, I to be honest, I was surprised by this one a little bit, and that, I suppose, look, this kind of fixture has been a kind of a common theme up in Ulster the last few years. That Dunloy have won a few up in Antrim, and then they have never been able to get over that Slough-Neil challenge, I suppose. And last year, I thought, with the way they were moving in Antrim, I thought Dunloy were absolutely flying, and I thought they had a great chance of taking them. And then Slough-Neil last year just had too much for them, I suppose. And I was kind of thinking that the same thing would maybe happen this year, that I thought that Slough-Neil's kind of just their know-how and their experience of winning Ulsters and getting through games as well. And look, you mentioned the players they have up there as well. I really thought that Slough-Neil would have enough, because bear in mind, last year you could say that the team, other than Ballyhale, of course, the team that tested Ballygunner the most out of anyone last year was Slough-Neil, and look, to be honest, I think it was only 2 points that finished in the end. That game at Parnell Park, that was an absolute war. And look, Ballygunner were absolutely like I think as Hutchinson said himself, that they felt blessed to get out of that game because they were really, really pulling under pressure. So I really thought that Slaughtneil had a great chance of kind of even maybe looking at St. Thomas's in the next round. I thought that they would have been targeting an All-Ireland final this year as well. So for Dunloy to kind of go in against the odds as well, and to I suppose to get that victory as well, I think most people would have probably been betting against them. Look, it's an absolutely huge victory for them and for Antrim hurling as a whole.
Yeah, and no doubt there were some key moments in this game, starting with the 8th minute, a freak goal for Dunloy. I mean, I don't know what really was going on with the Slaughtneil goalkeeper. And then just before half time, Owen McFerrin boomed the clearance for Dunloy all the way down, fell to Nigel Elliott, scooped it up, and he buried it past O'Doherty. More of a place style finish, but a fantastic finish. Not only the goals, but the timing of the goals, I thought, for Dunloy was crucial, because the first one got them off the mark with a great start within the first 10 minutes. And then the one just before halftime would have knocked the stuffing out of the Derry champions, going in at halftime before their team talk. I mean, how do you motivate the troops after you've been hit with a sucker punch like that just before the interval? And I thought Slaughtneil, in the last 10 minutes, they looked rattled, 4 wides in the last 10 minutes. They were losing their composure a little bit. So not only the way that Dunloy struck, but the timing of it, I thought, was crucial.
Yeah, looking at that, I think that was the key point as well, is that in the second half, the wides as well for Slaughtneil, and that for a team that have got over the line so much as well, that they did seem kind of, I don't know, nervous by the occasion or whatever it was as well, and maybe they were rattled as well. But look, it was just kind of uncharacteristic, I suppose. And look, it was a kind of an attritional game as well, I suppose, low enough scoring, just a real battle as well. And look, I think in those kind of conditions as well, that's where Slaughtneil have usually thrived and stuff, and played games in those type of conditions and tough enough winter pitches as well. And that's when they've seemed to be so good. So like, it's an absolutely huge achievement for Dunloy. And look, some of those players that are on that Dunloy side have become kind of key players for Antrim recently as well. Like, you look at the two Malloys anyway, particularly Keelan for Antrim, I suppose, as well. Like, it's an absolute superstar as well. And the fact that we get to see him later on the year when we go up to Croke Park as well and stuff, playing up there as well, it's brilliant for Ulster hurling, I suppose. And then Cole Cunning as well, like, really, really good player as well. Has been serving for Antrim for many years now as well. So the fact that we're getting a new team from Ulster, I suppose, representing Ulster in Croke Park, look, it's absolutely brilliant as well. And look, it is great to see the Antrim sides continue, because look, Antrim have given so much entertainment in the last few years in the league, everything as well, the few upsets that they have provided. So to see an Antrim side as well, and particularly Dunloy as well, after winning so much in Antrim and never really getting that shot in the last couple of years to go and represent the county in Croke Park, look, I think it's brilliant for both them and Antrim.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about the entertainment. Like, they've been entertaining us now for 2 years, definitely since Darren Gleeson came back in. They've been hugely entertaining. I mean, our first ever video, they beat Clare. Do you remember that? Like, everybody, that was their announcement that they had arrived. And I mean, now Dunloy, obviously Ulster Club Hurling champions, are going to be walking around with a swagger. They've beaten a side that a lot of people wouldn't have fancied them to beat. They're going in now against the St. Thomas's side, Galway champions, 5 in a row Galway champions. But it did take them 2 goals to beat Loughrea. And having seen how close Slaughtneil pushed Ballygunner last year, Dunloy are coming into this again in a very happy position, because they're going to be flying under the radar. People will expect St. Thomas's to beat them because they have the likes of Conor Cooney, they have the likes of Aina Burke. But I think I'd be quite happy if I was in Dunloy's camp right now. They got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yeah, well, look, I think that's the thing, is that, like, with no disrespect to St. Thomas's, that if Dunloy would want to play any team left in the competition, it would be St. Thomas's, and it would be St. Thomas's by a mile. So, like, I'd say they'd be quite happy that the way that it is this year is that we've got Connacht versus Ulster and then Leinster versus Munster. So no, look, I think they'll be quite happy that they've got St. Thomas's, that they'll be probably going in and they won't have a huge amount of fear of St. Thomas's. I think that, look, St. Thomas's have came through Galway, which, look, obviously the standard is very, very high in Galway, but they don't have the provincial to get them ready for this as well, that they're going straight from a Galway final into this as well. They didn't look like hugely impressive, I don't think, in there as well, that they're not scoring probably as freely as as what they had in previous years. But then at the same time, there is an awful lot of talent. There's an awful lot of talent in that St. Thomas's side, and that, look, it is going to be a huge old task for Dunloy. I think the challenge for them is, look, they were playing on pitches up there in Ulster as well and stuff as well, tough conditions, and we'll be transferring that onto Croke Park pitch, where, well, it's what I imagine will be either Croke Park or Thurles, probably Croke Park, going onto a top quality pitch as well, where the game's going to be a whole lot faster probably than what it was against Slaughtneil as well. And look, they'll be coming up against a very conditioned St. Thomas's side that, look, have been there before on, like, in these grounds as well, and have had big games there too. I'd maybe still be leaning towards St. Thomas's just because of all that experience and, look, that bit of firepower. But look, you're completely right in saying that they will have absolutely no fear of St. Thomas's whatsoever, and that, like, they're in a good position coming in as well. And look, they couldn't have asked for a better draw. I would be leaning towards St. Thomas's, but, like, I do think it will be a close enough game.
Yeah, I mean, St. Thomas's are off the back of completing the 5 in a row. Will there be an element of, job done, we've won the 5? Obviously, I'm thinking that they have eyes on the All-Ireland Club Championship, but will there be somewhere in the head where they're thinking we've already done a great deal this year? With Dunloy and with Antrim Hurling, there does seem to be this pure drive to just take it as far as they absolutely can. Darren Gleeson has really set the trend there with the Antrim Hurling team, that he wants absolute perfection, and I'm sure Dunloy are the same. St. Thomas's 5 in a row, but by God, Loughrea took them to the absolute pin of their collar in the first game and indeed in the replay. So how much St. Thomas's recover before the semi-final will be absolutely crucial. The knocks that they've picked up, etc. Speaking of Galway champions, Moycullen, 13 points. Thurles Strand, 6 points. The Galway champions cruise to their first ever Connacht title. This is in Gaelic football now. A great week for Moycullen. Obviously, they're Galway minor champions, and now they've their first ever Connacht senior title. Another interesting storyline going into this game was managers Fergal O'Donnell of Thurles Strand and Don Kennellan of Moycullen were former teammates for Roscommon, but they're on opposite sides this day. Moycullen running out 13 points to 6 winners, their first ever Connacht senior title, Luke.
Yeah, look, and I suppose a little bit trickier, I suppose, for them this time as well. And that, look, I suppose the last few games we watched from them, when they steamrolled past Westport and stuff, and they absolutely cruising through parts of Galway Championship as well, that, look, they finally kind of, I suppose, they've got a stern enough test from Thurles Strand as well, who, look, as the 7-time winners of Sligo as well. They've been around the block a few times now. They know what they're doing. They're a good, wily old side as well. And in the first half, they really frustrated Moycullen, I thought. And look, Moycullen really struggled to get up and running, I think, in the first half. That, look, they weren't really scoring from play at all in the first half. I don't think they did score at all.
They didn't score a point from play. That's what I'm saying. Like, because you're saying here, you're very correct there, saying that, look, they blew away Westport. And that was one of the games where you're looking at thinking they stuck 3-18 on Westport. And it was like, whoa, like, that is a real statement to the rest of the country. Like, that is a real, we're coming for that All-Ireland. And now Strokestown held them for long periods of that game, and they looked quite shaky against Strokestown. Now they don't hit a point from play in the first half against Thurles Strand. Like, albeit, yes, absolute dynasty there in Sligo, but their first provincial final in 41 years. Like, it's one of those things where you're looking at it saying, like, Moycullen looked perfect against Westport, but is there maybe a little bit of a kind of weakness there being shown? That if you can just hold them, like the Desi Keneally's freeze, like without them in the first half, they would have been in dire straits at halftime.
Yeah, look, I suppose, look, the thing is they did work it out in the second half, and that, look, they're a huge side, like that. They're very, very well conditioned, and that the fact that they have the 3 Kellys in around midfield. Peter Cook now is back in after the last day as well. That I think there was a bit of concern with the Strokestown game, wasn't around and stuff as well. What his availability was going to be like. And look, the fact that he was back as well, and he kicked big scores in the second half and is a huge addition in there as well. That I do think that they could be a side that, because of their physical kind of prowess, I suppose, and just their kind of their stamina, everything like that as well, their power as well, that when they get up to the big pitches as well in Croke Park, this is the same thing with kind of Curve in sometimes as well, was that sometimes in Connacht they wouldn't deliver the perfect performances really, and that they could get bogged down sometimes as well. But then as soon as they came up to Croke Park, they'd be back there, and those kind of forwards like I suppose the Desi Keneally's for them as well, and you've Gallagher in there as well. Kellys are coming from deep and everything as well. That once they get up into one of those pitches, I wouldn't be surprised if it did just click for them all of a sudden, and that everything kind of, all those concerns kind of go away. But at the same time, yeah, they did struggle, I think, in the first half. Look, they went in 4-3 up at halftime. Not a classic really at all in the first half, but look, they worked out in the second half, and they finished very, very strongly anyway as well. And look, it's job done. And for a team, I suppose, that have been with kind of Curve in for ages in Galway, that Curve inside that was dominated for so long. And then the 1 year that they did win Galway, they didn't get a crack at Connacht as well. For them, I think they'll just be absolutely delighted that they've got over the line in Connacht, and like whatever manner they do it in, they'll be absolutely thrilled with that. And look, I suppose the fact it must have been weighing pretty heavily on their mind, I'd imagine, that the year that they did win Galway, that they couldn't have a go at Connacht and they couldn't test themselves against the rest of the province. So the fact they have now and got over the line, look, they must be absolutely thrilled with that.
Yeah, no doubt, because to tag on to that point, I would have backed them to win the province that year in 2020 as well. I would have seriously struggled to find anybody that I would have backed to beat them that year. There was a 2-minute spell where Moy Cullen absolutely put the game to bed, in my opinion. That was their burst of 3 points. Peter Cook, Micheál O'Reilly and Paul Kelly all pointed in just over 2 minutes. And then on top of that, Peter Cook hit a boomer not long after to make it 10 points to 5. I think those two incidents, that 2-minute spell and Peter Cook's belter of a point, I think that was, if you're looking at key moments where Moy Cullen just separated themselves from Turlestrand, those two stick out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and Turlestrand some good moments too as well. I think, look, Liam Gowan, the corner forward there from playing for Sligo as well, had a really good game as well. He's a really great threat in there too. But look, I suppose that, look, Moy Cullen, like that, they just seem to have some really, really good pieces, I suppose, as well. Look, I'm a big fan of Mulcahy, the fullback as well. David Wynn and cornerback as well is a really nice player too. That they just have really quality players as well. And that, look, I think as well, after watching the Kellys during the year as well for Galway, when them getting to an All-Ireland final as well, they just seem to have that bit of a bounce about them as well. And look, with Peter Cook back in there too, like I'm really excited to see how they go on as well, because look, the next time we've talked on the pod here a lot about how strong Ulster is, and look, that's the way it's going now, is that it's going to be Connacht versus Ulster. And look, we were talking about this just there in the hurling, that you can nearly argue that I'd think that the Connacht and Ulster teams kind of well, look, I suppose they're going to be two very interesting games, I suppose, in there as well. That, like, it's very, very difficult to call, I suppose. It's very hard to judge and to gauge, I suppose, where Moy Cullen are in comparison to a Kilcoo or a Glen as well. And look, those questions that we raised here about if a Turlestrand side can frustrate, I suppose, Moy Cullen as much as they did in the first half, like what would a Glen or Kilcoo, whose defensive system is off the charts good, what would they do to Moy Cullen? Yeah. And that's the big kind of question I think I have about them going forward.
Yeah, or even Kilmacud Crokes. We're going to talk about them later. Like Kilmacud Crokes in their game, they held for a second consecutive game. They held their opponents scoreless from play in the first half, Port Arlington, and then they did it to the Downs. So going forward, like Moy Cullen need to get their attacking back on that level of that Westport game. We know they have it in them, and they could well do that to Kilcoo or Waddy Graham's Glen, depending on who they come up against. And by God, that is going to be one hell of a semi-final. I mean, I can't wait to see who's going to come out of that game anyway. But I mentioned the other provincial football final. That game in the Leinster football final was Kilmacud Crokes 112, the Downs of Westmeath 8 points. Shane Walsh stealing the show again. He's only played 7 games, Luke, for Kilmacud Crokes. He's won a Dublin medal and a Leinster football championship medal. So not bad going for 7 games. He came through in this one with 9 points, scooping up the man of the match award along the way. An early Shane Cunningham goal. I just thought at that stage that the game was over for Kilmacud Crokes. They held it down, as I mentioned, scoreless from play in the first half. I mean, those key moments, the early Shane Cunningham goal and the fact that the Downs didn't get a score from play in the first half, just a professional performance by Crokes. They just shut the Downs down.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's just starting to look very, very efficient in Kilmacud at the moment. And that, like, that they just seem to have come on leaps and bounds in every round since the Dublin final as well. They were really testing the Dublin final, and for large parts of that game, you thought, look, Nafina probably could have came out and won that game as well. Probably should have won that game if I suppose if David Lacey and stuff and Brian O'Leary had kind of kicked those scores that we could be talking about.
Oh, the chances they had in that second half were just crazy. I couldn't believe the Crokes got over the line in that one. And then Nafina probably watching this game thinking, like, surely if Nafina had won, they would have backed themselves to go and win Leinster.
Oh, yeah, look, absolutely. I do think Nafina would have as well. So, look, but I think Crokes since then, though, yeah, look, they probably knew that they got out of jail a little bit in that one as well. And that their know-how, I suppose, and Shane Walsh's kind of individual class, I suppose, got them over the line that day. But ever since then, I think that they've just come on hugely, and they just look very, very formidable at the moment as well. And you talk about that defensive system that's the big thing that goes underrated with Crokes. And I think, look, in previous years it was Mannion that was catching the headlines and stuff, and this year it's Shane Walsh that's getting the headlines. But that defense is just absolutely rock solid. You've O'Carroll marshalling it in centre half back, and this fella in full back, Theo Clancy as well, that he's been kind of going under the radar a little bit as well. He's still eligible to be a Dublin under 20 next year as well, but I think he could get fast tracked into the senior team because he looks an absolute star. It's his first year playing for Crokes seniors, and he looks so at home there as well. Himself and Michael Mullen in the corner are just they're just ferocious defenders as well. They don't ever seem to give up any scores to their man marker as well. So it's just, I think the two of them have a great chance of being involved in the Dublin panel next year as well, because it's just a very, very good side as well. And the fact that they always seem to have this ability that they can drop a player as well. Like it's stuff that Cillian O'Shea's been in and out of the team. He was literally starting games in the National League for Dublin, and then he's been kind of in and out sometimes as well. You've Andrew McGowan out there too in the half-back line, and Dan O'Brien as well, who's played for Dublin too as well recent years. That, look, it's just a very, very good system that they know exactly what they're doing. And the other thing is with them is that the management has shown kind of time and time again is that they'll play players that will fit the system, and that players that will follow instructions will work hard, who's performing in training as well. And it's clear that that the team is being picked based on that as well, that they're really not afraid to bring in the likes of the Theo Clancy's and stuff as well, and to have him playing over the likes of a Cillian O'Shea as well, which is big calls I don't think many other management teams would make.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a worthy shout. And I mean, you're talking about other players over the years that have played for Dublin that are Kilmacud Crokes lads that aren't playing with the squad this year. Players like Liam Flatman, like we haven't seen him much in the club championship. He was playing for Dublin in the league there back in 2020. Like, I mean, it's remarkable the amount of strength and depth that they have, that they don't even have Paul Mannion, and they gave Cruz to a provincial club title. Like, this is a crazy amount of strength and depth that Kilmacud Crokes have. We do have to mention, obviously, Oisin Langan, who was on this podcast. He made a good point. He said, look, having the numbers and all that, but that takes a different type of struggle to manage all these players, to get everyone working as a cohesive unit. And I think Crokes have absolutely nailed that. Now they go forward. Now they have put this challenge to bed in a very professional manner. They're going to be coming up against the Munster champions next, which will be either Cairns O'Rahilly's of Kerry or Newcastle West of Limerick. I have to say I fancy them to get to the final. Yeah,
look, I do think that, look, it probably is very early to say when we don't even know who they're playing yet as well. But look, I do think that they'll be quite happy to have had the Munster champions as well. And that, look, Munster's been a kind of strange province this year as well. Look, Cairns O'Rahilly won't be, if Cairns O'Rahilly come true, I don't think Crokes be too terrified of a side that lost 3 games in Kerry this year. So, I don't think that they'd be too terrified of them as well. And look, Newcastle West are having a great year, and that, maybe they might be going in slight favourites, I think, to get out of Munster potentially in that game as well. Hard to know, really. But again, a side that hasn't came out of Munster before, really, I don't think Crokes would be too worried about them as well. So I think Crokes will be in the final anyway as well. And I can't see somebody putting a glove on them at the moment as well. I think, they're another side. They'll continue getting better and better and better as it goes on as well. So I think I'd be pretty confident that Crokes will be playing in the All-Ireland final again this year.
No, though I would be pretty confident in backing them, but it's shaping up to be an outstanding Final Four. I mean, I can't wait to see how it's going to shape up. But I mean, how many clubs started out on this journey and now there is only, well, 6 clubs left and soon to be 4, and then we will have all of our provincial champions. Just before we wrap up, Luke, your moment of the weekend. I mean, so many great moments over the club championship this weekend, so many great teams, so many great victories. What one was your favorite?
Yeah, look, it's hard to know. I'll probably go with Dunloy beating Slaughtneil, I think, in the end, and that just for Dunloy winning so much, I suppose, in Antrim as well, and just not really getting through Ulster the last couple of years as well, coming up and being kind of unfortunate and having to play at the same time as this unbelievable Slaughtneil side. So for them to getting over the line, I think, at the end as well, and I suppose for the first time in a few years, I suppose we have a different team representing Ulster this year as well. So I'll go with them getting their first Ulster title in a little while, as probably is the best moment of the weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one that's maybe outside the line. I'm going to go with Shane Beston from Ballygiblin. He got married on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday, he scored 3-3 to clinch the Munster Junior Hurling Championship for his club, Ballygiblin. I mean, not a bad weekend for Shane Beston. Congratulations to Shane if you're watching this one. But that is the full recap here on Play on GAA, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And until the next one, take care.